A discussion will take place August 18th at Hibernian Hall in Roxbury about how city government works. The event's being put together by the initiative Boston 500, which is supported by Mass Vote and the Boston NAACP. To tell us about the event is our guest from Boston 500, a strategic partner representing Garrison Trotter Neighborhood Association and the Prince Hall Masons, Elisa. Thank you very much for being with us again, Louis.
Good afternoon. Thank you, sir.
First of all, how government works, what does this, you could be all over the place with this, right?
Well, it could go a lot of places, but we have two very prominent members of the community. We have former City Councilor Chuck Turner, and we have former State Representative Marie St. Flair, who understand the business of government very well. And the issues that people are most concerned about is who actually speaks for them, who gets things done, who determines what the school budget's going to be, who determines, what's happening with the $43 million in overtime that goes for the police department. Those are issues that people are concerned about.
Well, one of the things you're confronted with right now is some very important decisions that are made by city government. So we're talking about real power at the local level, but we also have an election coming up, and a lot of people are saying, oh, this is not a very interesting election year. So you got to struggle there.
It's a very big struggle, and I guess that's why the Mass Vote, a very strong civic engagement organization working with the coalition with the NAACP, a number of civic partners, a number of community groups and organizations throughout the city decided that we wanted to let people know that they had to get out and get involved. They have to be concerned because the people making decisions, these city councilors, represent them. So the question, who speaks for you? Who makes the decision about what happens in your neighborhood, in your community, throughout your city? And so we want to educate and inform people so they know that the day after Labor Day is an election day. We're the only city in the Commonwealth that has election day the day after Labor Day, 2 weeks before everyone else, and it's important to participate.
Well, I can imagine, let's say, among the least motivated to vote might be people who just don't want to change anything. So why should they take the trouble to go out and vote?
Well, you should always vote because the franchise is important. If a lot of people die, so you have the right to vote. For women who've only been voting for less than 100 years in this country, it's important. For African Americans who've had the right to vote but did not have access to the polls for less than 65 years, and this is the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act 50 years later, we need to stay involved and get engaged in what's going on in our community. And for everyone else who has something to say about the schools, about the housing, the new BRA redevelopment plans for the city, they should be involved and vote because the people they elect will have something to say about that.
Well, talk about some examples, because if we could talk about some of the big issues. I mean, right now, I'm sure lots of people in Roxbury, for example, are concerned about the cost of housing. They're worried about gentrification. So, you're one of them. So, what does city government do about that? What can it do?
Well, the city government, the city councils have tremendous power. There's a weak city council and a strong mayor, but they have oversight over the budget. And they can bring in the department heads and they can argue and determine what they're going to get in terms of resources. So the big issues about gentrification, it's not just Roxbury, it's not Dorchester, Mattapan, it's the city of Boston. People in South Boston, people in Hyde Park, Reedville, and different places, they're losing their homes to people who can outbid them and outbuy them. And so the issue is what happens with rent control or what happens to property access. It's an issue for everyone in the city. In Roxbury, of course, it's a bigger issue because the incomes have challenged more greater. And so therefore, we want people to get involved and know who they can talk to, why they should talk to them, and where they can get some results. So
another big topic is jobs, and you know the history of the Boston Jobs Ordinance. People still want to see more delivered on that, but I guess that's an example, too, about how city government is doing.
It's an excellent example. And so people who are interested in knowing what the city of Boston has done, is doing and can do in the future as it relates to jobs, as it relates to minorities and women being a part of the construction, the $8 billion is going to be spent in the city in terms of redevelopment. They need to come to this forum and find out who they should talk to and how they can stay engaged and involved. And B500 is that process. Process says we're going to get 500 individuals who are going to reach 20 other individuals, and by 2016 we'll have a voting block of 10,000 people who will be able to make a statement about who the leadership of this city should be.
Talk about the power balance here, because as you mentioned, we have this strong mayor, weak city council kind of government. You could change who the councilor is, but that structure is still in place. So how can a good turnout make a difference in how much clout a local councilor might have? If that councilor has to go to the mayor saying, I need this, and it's really important, how does turnout matter in that?
Turnout matters a lot. Neighborhoods where people turn out sends a message not just to the city council, but it sends a message to the mayor. if the mayor knows that he has a community that's voting on a block that's voting, for their interests, they're going to be more sensitive to their needs and concerns. There's no community that turns out 67% of its voters at any election will not hear from the mayor if they have a concern. So that we therefore have to get people engaged. We have to educate them and then keep them involved in this process. So the real issue is how do we get people to understand that they can have impact on city government by informing them, educating them, and then keeping them involved so that they don't vote one time and walk away. It can't be just the mayoral race. These city council races have a lot of impact on your city.
By the way, what about getting younger people to go to an event like this?
Well,
why should they go?
B500 has been basically focused on young men and young women of the city. It's been focused on a lot of African American and Latinos and Asians, but working with young people throughout the city because this is their city. The future is theirs. Everything that's taking place, the rise in price for housing, the rise in cost for permits and things of that nature, it's going to affect them directly. Getting the city involved in determining what the universities and people are charging for housing just in general and jobs, basically, it's going to affect young people. So the more they get involved, the more they know who to go to get services and support, the better their lives will be in the future.
And of course, a lot of the ongoing debate right now about monitoring police conduct, body cameras, that's city government.
Well, the council meeting by City Councilor Charles Yancey last week was a very loud and very boisterous one, but a very important one because the issue about monitoring police and what they're doing is critical, not just in Boston, but throughout the country. And as we see that there's been a change, but it's not just for people who are victims, it's also for police. It's been very effective in bringing down the complaints against police because now we have information that we can, in a sense, validate and verify what people are saying is happening on the street. I don't think anybody in their right mind would be against having a process that makes the work of the police simpler and safer.
We should mention, just to make sure people catch it, exactly when this discussion will happen on the 18th?
It's on the 18th at
Hibernian
Hall on Dudley Street, and it's 6 o'clock from 6 to 8. We'll have City Council, past City Council Chuck Turner and Marie St. Fleur, past State Representative, but there'll be other city councils in attendance. We will break up in small workshops and groups, so if you have a question about housing, have a question about street safety, have a question about education, any of the questions that impact the quality of your life, there will be someone there in one of the workshop areas to discuss it with you and talk about how it gets them. More important, we'll learn how ordinances are written, and the ordinance becomes, home petitions in order to get things changed. So if there's something you want to change in the community, maybe you want to go back to elected school board. That might be a discussion.
All right, thank you very much. Elisa from Boston 500. Still to come, we'll tell you about some new public art in Dudley Square.